I am making a Dark World deck profile. I've been playing around with this deck for a bit, and I actually really like how it works. The only thing I'm still going to change is I'll either take 2 cards out for 2 copies of Pot of Avarice, or I'll just add 2 copies of Pot of Avarice. Just because I noticed this deck goes through monsters really quickly. So starting off with the main deck, I play 1 copy of Ceruli, Guru of Dark World. I have thought about playing this card at 2, but Ceruli has the effect if it's discarded, you summon it to your opponent's side of the field, and it has the effect of when it's special summoned, your opponent discards 1 card. So you give it to your opponent, then your opponent's forced to activate its mandatory ability, so make you discard a card, which can trigger your Dark World's second effects. Because they have their own effects of their discard by a card, and then another if it's discarded by an opponent's card. Which, if it's discarded by an opponent's card, will trigger both. Then I play 1 copy of Parl, Hermit of Dark World. Parl has the effect of, if this card is discarded to the graveyard by card effect, you can target a Dark World monster in your graveyard, except for Hermit, or Parl, Hermit of the Dark World. Summon it to either field, then if this card is discarded from your hand to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon to either field one of your fiend monsters as banished, or in your hand or graveyard. And you only use each effect of Parl, Hermit of the Dark World once per turn. I don't know if I'll keep Parl in the deck, because I may just replace Parl with a second copy of Ceruli. But for now, I like him at 1. Then I play 3 copies of Brow, Huntsman of Dark World. Brow has the effect if he's discarded, you draw a card, but if discarded by an opponent's card, then you draw 2 cards instead. The fun part of some of these older Dark World cards is that they are not once per turns at all. So if you discard multiple Brows, you get to draw multiple times. And then I play 3 copies of Genta, Gateman of Dark World. This card's an important one, just because you can discard it to then add the Gates of Dark World from your deck to your hand. If it is banished, then you can special summon it from your banished, and you can only summon, my bad. You can only special summon Genta, Gateman of Dark World once per turn, which is the only once per turn the card has. But the only downside is summoning it with its own effect, as I think it's banished from lose the field. Let's see. My bad. If it's banished while you control a Dark World card, then you can summon it, and it does not leave the banishment leaves the field. So just to recap, you discard it, add Gates of Dark World, and if it's banished while you control a Dark World card, then you can summon it. You can only special summon Genta, Gateman of Dark World once per turn. Then I play 2 copies of Beige, Vanguard of Dark World. Beige literally just summons himself if he's discarded. Then I play 3 copies of Snow, Unlight of Dark World. Snow's effect is worded weirdly, but it has the effect that if it's discarded, then you can add a Dark World card from your deck to your hand. And if discarded by an opponent's card effect, then you can also, summon a level 4 or lower from deck. My bad. If it's discarded by an opponent's card effect, you can target 1 card in your opponent's graveyard, and then special summon that target in defense position to your field. Or I assume it works just to your field. It doesn't really specify, but oh well. And then I play two copies of Silva, Warlord of Dark World. Silva's my favorite of the the Dark Worlds that discard themselves and then summon. Summon themselves when discarded. I cannot word for some reason. But it also has the effect of when discarded, it summons itself, and then if discarded by an opponent's card effect, your opponent takes 2 cards from their hands and places them at the bottom of the deck. The only downside of this deck is that it really has a bad matchup against Tearlament. Then I play 2 copies of Grapha, Dragon Lord of Dark World. Grapha has the mandatory effect of when it's discarded to target 1 card on your opponent's field and destroy it. Even if there's not a target, it still has to activate because it is mandatory. And the downside of this card being mandatory is that if you do a chain order, this one always has to be chain 1 instead of the very end of the chain. It also has an effect Engrave where you can return a Dark World other than Grapha to your hand that you control to then summon Grapha from the grave. Then I play 3 copies of my favorite Dark World, which is 3 copies of Rainbow over King of Dark World. Rainbow has the effect of when discarded, you add a level 5 or higher Dark World from your deck to your hand, except for another Rainbow. And if discarded by an opponent's card effect, then you can special summon a level 4 or lower Dark World from your grave to either field. Then for the dangers, I play 3 copies of Danger Mothman, which Mothman's effect is when discarded, each player draws a card and discards a card, which isn't the best in tier elements, which usually when facing tier elements, this card gets sided out. Same with one of the one-up spells. 3 copies of Danger Thunderbird. When Danger Thunderbird is discarded, you target 1 set card your opponent controls and destroy it. And 3 copies of Danger Bigfoot. Danger Bigfoot has the effect when discarded, target 1 face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it. And all the dangers have the effect you can reveal it in hand, and then your opponent chooses 1 card in your hand at random. And then that card is discarded, and as long as it wasn't a danger of the same name, then you summon it and then draw a card. Moving on to the spells, I play 1 copy of Card Destruction. This is another card that gets sided out immediately against tier element. This just makes each player discard their entire hand and draw the same number of cards. If this card got put to 3, then I would hope tier element got neutered, but then I would only play Dark World. Holy crap, I can't word. And I also play 1 copy of Dark World Puppetry. Puppetry, I felt like it was a decent 1 of. Unless you're facing tier element, then it would be a decent 3 of. But Puppetry has the effect of you can target 3 cards in either grave, banish them, then discard a fiend. You can only activate. I believe you can only use each effect once. Okay, you only activate 1 effect of Dark World Puppetry per turn. And I believe it has another effect where you can return it to your hand. No. If this card, during the main phase, except the turn this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card, target 1 of your banished fiend monsters, add to your hand. Which, I don't use that latter part that often, but I do like the fact that you can interrupt tier limit with it. Then I play 2 copies of Dark World Accession. Or is it Accession? I don't know how, but anyway, this card is the fusion card of the deck, where you can fusion summon a fiend monster by using monsters from your, I don't remember. You banish materials from your field or grave. But if you're fusion summoning a Dark World monster, you can also discard monsters from your hand. And then, while it's in the graveyard, you can discard a Dark World. It's either a Dark World or a Fiend. I haven't memorized this card yet, so that's my excuse. Yeah, you discard a Dark World monster, turn it to your hand, and you can only use each effect of Dark World Accession once per turn. Then I play 2 copies of Dark World Archives. I love Dark World Archives just because it is a continuous pseudo graceful charity where you discard is that a fiend? I can't remember because some of these just say Dark World, others say fiend. Okay, you can discard a Dark World monster to then have all Dark World monsters you currently control gain 100 attack times its level until the end of the turn. And then if a Dark World monster is discarded, then you can discard one card to draw two. And you can only use each effect of Dark World Archives once per turn. And then I play 3 copies of the Gates of Dark World. The Gates of Dark World is the most important card in this deck, in my opinion. It has the effects of all Fiend monsters gain 300 attack and defense. Once per turn, you can banish a Fiend from your grave, discard a card, and then draw 1. And then this is either where I would take out the next 2 for 2 copies of Pot of Avarice, where you target 5 monsters in your grave, shuffle them into the deck, and then draw 2 cards. But lastly, I play 2 copies of Evenly Matched. Evenly Matched is in this deck for if I'm going second, because it has the effect of at the end of the battle phase, if your opponent controls more cards than you do, your opponent has to banish cards from their field face down until they have their cards equal to yours. So if you're going second, it also has the effect of while you control no cards you can activate from your hand. So if you're going second, you can just play this from your hand by giving up your battle phase, and then your opponent would have to banish all but one of their cards, and then you just proceed to do your main phase 2 as your main phase 1, as if you were going first. I really like this card, but I don't know if I want to take it out for 2 copies of Pot of Avarice, or keep it in the main. But for now, I do like it in the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck, I play 1 copy of Cross Sheep, 1 IP Masquerena, and 1 copy of Appaloosa, Bow of the Goddess. Cross Sheep's only in this deck as an extender, because if you special summon a monster in a zone it points to, you can activate effects depending on what it points to. Which with this deck, it only ever point to an Xyz or a Fusion. Which, if it points to an Xyz monster, you can have all monsters your opponent controls do 700 attack. And then if it points to a Fusion monster, then you can special summon a level 4 or lower monster from your graveyard. And then IP Masquerena just has the effect of during your opponent's main phase quick effect, you can activate its effect immediately and link off using monsters you control. Or link summon a monster. You can link summon a monster using materials you control, including itself, and if it's used for link summon a monster, that monster cannot be destroyed by card effects. And then Appaloosa gains 800 attack for each material used to make it, and then it can lose 800 attack points to then negate an opponent's monster effect once per chain. Then I play 1 copy of Cerberus, Phoenix, and Unicorn. Cerberus has the effect of you can discard a card for cost, so the only downside of these 3 is that they will not trigger your Dark World or Danger effects. But Cerberus has the effect of you can discard a card, target a special summon monster in your opponent's main monster zone, destroy it. Phoenix has the effect of you can discard a card, target a spell or trap your opponent controls, and destroy it. And Unicorn discards a card to then target 1 card your opponent controls and return it to the deck. And then Unicorn has the effect of if this card's co-linked, or they all have the effect of, and then this card was co-linked after their effects resolve, you get to draw a card. And then Unicorn, if it's co-linked during your draw phase, then you can, instead of conducting your normal draw, you can draw 1 card for every other monster it's linked to, or it's co-linked with. Phoenix makes it so that the co-linked monsters cannot be destroyed in battle, and Cerberus protects co-linked monsters from being destroyed in card effect. So, if you have, just gonna do this, I accidentally bumped the camera. So if this is how your monsters are, you have Unicorn pointing to Phoenix, which points to Cerberus. They're all co-linked. then none of them can be destroyed by battle or card effects, and during your draw phase, you get to draw 2 cards. That's essentially how that effect works. Or that would work. Then I play 1 copy of number 60, Dugash the Timeless, 1 copy of Abyss Dweller, and 1 copy of Bagooska, Terribly Tired Tapir. Dugaris has the effect you can detach 2 materials. Then you can either skip your main phase, or main phase 1, battle phase, or draw phase, depending on which effect you want to use. Which, if you can double the attack of a monster you control till the end of the turn, but then skip your battle phase, or your next battle phase, or the battle phase in your next turn. All the phases you skip are of your next turn, so if you use the effect, you don't want to skip the phase of that turn. But you can draw 2 cards and discard 1, but skip your next draw phase. Or you can summon a monster from your graveyard, but skip your next main phase 1. Abyss Dweller is in this deck just for decks that use grave effects or the mirror match. So basically Tearlament or Dark World. And then Bagooska is in here just in case I can only make 1 Xyz monster and that's it, and I need to stall a bit. Because when Bagooska's in defense mode, it switches all other monsters on the field to defense, and then the effects of the monsters in defense, or is it their activating effect? Okay, and it negates all activated effects of all monsters in defense except for itself. And I believe when it's in attack position, it just can't be destroyed. Okay, yeah, while it's in attack position, then it cannot be destroyed by card effects. But if it's in defense, it switches everything else to defense, and then negates all activated effects of monsters in defense mode. And since Bagooska's effects don't activate, it doesn't affect itself. Then I play 1 copy of number 23, Lancelot, Dark Knight of the Underworld, 1 copy of number 22, Zombiestein, and 1 copy of number 38, Hope Harbinger Dragon Titanic Galaxy. Lancelot is a odd card, but it has the effect of while it has materials, it can attack your opponent directly. If you're... I forget how it works, if it deals damage. Okay, when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, destroy it. Then once per turn during either player's turn, when a spell, trap, or monster effect is activated, you can detach a card from this card and negate the activation. The only downside of this card's negate is that it is a mandatory one. And then Zombiestein is it just says during either player's turn, quick effect, you can detach a material, send a card from your hand to the grave, and then target 1 card your opponent controls. Switch this card to defense, and then negate that card's effects. The only downside of this is that Zombiestein does only have 1,000 defense points. And then Hope Harbinger Dragon Titanic Galaxy has the effect of, if your opponent would activate a spell card or the effect of a spell, you can negate that card's effect and then attach it to it as material. If another monster you control be destroyed by a battle or a card effect, then you target 1 other monster you control, have it gain that monster's attack till the end of the turn. And then if an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can detach a material from this card to then have that attack redeclared on itself. Which is something I like doing if I give my opponent a Ceruli, switch this to defense, and then activate Rivalry. So they're stuck in with Fiends. Or was it Gozen? I don't remember. I just remember there's some way you can give your opponent a Ceruli. They can't summon monsters, but they also can't get rid of the Ceruli. I have to remember what that was. Then I play 3 copies of one of my favorite Dark World monsters as far as art goes. And that is 3 copies of Grapha, Dragon Overlord of Dark World. Which, it has the effect of, while you have a hand, if your opponent will activate a spell, trap, or monster effect, then you can activate this card's effect to then change that effect to your opponent discards 1 card. And then it also has the effect if it is destroyed by a battle or card effect. So I think it's battle or card effect. Let's see. As long as this Fusion Summon card leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, or because of an opponent's card, not effect, so by battle or card effect, as long as it was your opponent doing it. And then you can special summon a Grapha that is banished or in your graveyard. You can only use each effect of Grapha, Dragon Overlord, or Dark World once per turn. That is it for my Dark World deck. Moving on to the side deck for now. This is built towards my locals, but the side deck can be literally anything you want. But for now, it is 3 copies of DD Crow. DD Crow just targets 1 card in your opponent's grave, banish it. That's kind of simple. It's only in here for tier limits. Then I play 3 copies of Token Collector. This is just because a couple people at my locals play Sword Soul, and other than this, I really don't know how to fight them that well. Then I play 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster and 2 copies of Dark World Puppetry. Puppetry is also in this side deck for what was it? For tier limits, and then Feather Duster's in the deck just for back row hate, since the deck doesn't really main any other than Thunderbird and Phoenix. Then I play 3 copies of Deck Devastation Virus. This is because there's 1 person at my locals that plays Sprite. I believe only 1 person plays Sprite, 1 plays Tier Element, and then other than that, it's more or less rogue decks. Like 1 person plays Punk, another Sword Soul. But Deck Devastation Virus, you distribute a dark monster with 2,000 more attack, look at your opponent's hand, and every card they draw for their next 3 draw phases. And then any monster that has 1,500 or less attack is destroyed. Or is it sent? I don't remember. Okay, yeah, you destroy all their monsters with 1,500 less attack. And to finish off the side deck, I play 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier. Ideally, this would be more... or at least for my locals, it would be non-fusion area. Just because of how most of the better decks are using fusions. But for now, Dimensional Barrier is just as good. I just want non-fusion area specifically for tier element because I can't usually beat them in a single turn regardless of what deck I play. But that was it for my side deck, and therefore that's it for my Dark World deck profile. If you have any ideas what I can do to improve the deck, any ideas that deck plays to be made in the future, or face each other, feel free to comment down below. Thanks for watching.